I'm going to introduce to you the baking unit today. So we are going to cover just a couple of the concepts in this unit before we end for the semester. And when we return, we are going to continue on and do the second half of this unit. So we did an activity a couple of weeks ago, a crossword on baking terms, and several students commented to me that they had difficulty with it because so many of the terms were so similar. So in cooking, in baking, it is important to note that there are a lot of terms that kind of mean the same thing, but don't totally mean the same thing. And it's critical sometimes to know and understand the differences between them. For example, folding and whipping, they both mean to mix things together or to combine ingredients, but they're not the same. If you whip something that should be folded or you fold something that should be whipped, you're not going to get the same product. So, this first concept that we're going to cover in the baking unit are the most common ways that we mix or combine something together. So, the three most commonly used mixing methods are creaming, biscuit, and muffin. So, in my class this semester, you already have some experience in demo or in lab with the biscuit method. We did the biscuit method when we made the 7-Up biscuits. You're going to, for your next lab, experience the muffin method of mixing, and this is going to be used for kind of some delicate items like muffins. The creaming method you're going to experience a little bit more when we return and you all delve into some scientific cookie labs. So, the creaming method that we'll explore further is when you take fat, usually butter, but sometimes shortening. So, this would be a room temperature or a softened fat. You cream it with the sugar and the electric mixer with the paddle attachment. And you want to do this for several minutes. You don't just blend it until it's combined. You actually blend it and continue to whip and beat it together until it has incorporated some air, it has gained a little bit of size, and it's very light and creamy. And after you do that, then you add your dry ingredients gradually. If you have liquid ingredients, like if you're making, say, red velvet cupcakes, then you would have both liquid and dry ingredients, and you want to mix a little of each and then add and go back and forth until they're all incorporated. And then at the end, you would fold in any additives like chocolate chips or raisin spice if you were doing muffins or the like. So the creaming method is going to incorporate fat, usually butter, sometimes shortening, with sugar, and the first step is you whip that until it's very light and fluffy. The next one is the muffin method. So the muffin method uses two bowls, and in this one you use a liquid or a melted fat, and then you incorporate all of your liquid ingredients together in one bowl, and then your dry ingredients in a bowl, and then you barely pour them together. You don't really want to use the stand mixer. You really want to do this one by hand, and usually you'll use a rubber spatula and you'll just fold it over a few times. So, cornbread, muffins, pancakes, this is how we do the muffin method, and it's really important not to overmix. So, two bowls for the muffin method. You have a liquid bowl, then you have a dry bowl. You usually add the sugar to the liquid ingredients. It's important for many of these recipes that the sugar actually be incorporated in the liquid so that it has a chance to dissolve, because you're not going to mix it very much once you put the liquid and dry together. The third way, this is the one that you have done here in lab when we did the biscuits. We used a pastry blender to do this step here to cut. You actually take cold butter, cold fat, and you cut them into little pieces. I also demonstrated this in class in lab using the food processor. So when I'm doing a pie crust or if I'm making biscuits, I actually like to use my food processor because it's really handy and it's super quick. So here's visuals of the creaming method. You have access to this PowerPoint in your Canvas page as well. So you can pull this up anytime you need to remember. Same thing for the muffin method. We're actually going to be doing this next week in lab. And then you can also review the biscuit method here. So it shows you the biscuit method. Some some other less commonly talked about methods of mixing. This one here is sometimes called the dump method or the single stage method. And this is used for boxed cake mixes. So if you've ever made a cake out of a box or used baking mixes, essentially you put everything in there at one time, and then you turn it on. It's important to read the instructions because this method and these ingredients and the way these are incorporated together, they actually rely on you turning your mixer on and blending for about 2 minutes, and that's going to give you the best quality product. There's also the sponge method. So the sponge method is going to use egg whites, and you're going to create a soft or stiff peaked and you create a foam. And then you're going to maybe fold in some dry ingredients and or some fat ingredients. So angel food cake has no fat in it at all, but it does use a lot of sugar and some flour. Chiffon cake is like angel food cake, but it does involve some fat in there, meringue, like you might see on top of a pie or with some cookies, or souffle, so chocolate or cheese souffle. So the sponge method, you take egg whites and you foam them up and create a foam, and then you fold your ingredients together. And this is where it's really important to know and understand folding in, because once you've put the air into the egg whites, you can ruin them and knock them down pretty quickly. So those are two less commonly talked